Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. And it's an honor, in fact, to be here as part of this very distinguished lecture series. When I was given the call, I was particularly excited because I have a history with this lecture series. When I was a sophomore here, Thomas Bowen was a senior, big man on campus. He was the president of the History Majors Club at the time and initiated the Alton Junior Lecture Series. Now, I remember when I was sort of just becoming involved in the History Majors Club, how I, of course, looked up to Thomas and thought that his leadership was a good example for those of us who might come afterwards. And but one of the things in terms of being an institution builder was this lecture series to honor the incredible work that Dr. Hornsby has done, not just here at Morehouse College, but nationwide, and also in the field. His contributions have been quite extraordinary in many regards, and his reputation is highly regarded across the academy. I gave a call to Mr. Thomas Bowen, who initiated this lecture series 21 years ago, and he was actually surprised that his name happened to appear in the program. He was excited, so whoever put the history down here, he wants to give me a big hearty thanks for that. And he said that, when I asked him about his motivation there back in 1988 as a student here at Morehouse College, he said that it was quite clear that Dr. Hornsby, whose marquee class was Great Men and Women in history, in American history, this class was a sort of baptism by fire in many ways. It was a class that one of my colleagues, Fernand Wilkins, in fact, lost hair. I actually did not lie on that subject. He had patches of hair that fell out, which I was actually stressed, and he attributes to Dr. Hornsby. And so that class was, of course, that really prepared many of us for the rigors of graduate school. It was a class that required incredible reading, analytical skill, and everything else. But beyond being a good teacher, Dr. Hornsby was a good mentor. And one of the things that Thomas Bowen told me today was that if I were to give any kind of remark, that I should say that Dr. Hornsby, who taught that class, Great Men and Women in American History, not only did he teach about great men and women, but also inspired us to be great men and women. So we talked about how Dr. Hornsby was a mentor, a leader, he guided us, and it was, again, a very good teacher and a wonderful scholar. So for those reasons and many more, I'm very honored to be here tonight, Dr. Hornsby, and to be part of this long tradition of extraordinary contributors to your legacy. The presentation is, again, part of, if I want to just kind of give some other thanks to many people who helped bring this here, and I'll jump right into it, but the History Majors Club and Dexter Levine, as well as Dr. Samuel Livingston, Dr. Barksdale, and other people who've been involved in bringing me here. I'm very excited to be part of this and to share some of my research. This is my last book on hip-hop. Explores many different facets of hip-hop, but one of the things that the last chapter is on the prison-industrial complex. And the prison-industrial complex is really a sort of blight on an otherwise space of where we can actually scientifically measure the improvements, although things are still nowhere near where we like to be. The infant mortality rate lower than it's ever been. Looking around, these are data from around 2005, around there when the book was published. But murder rates have dropped to historic lows. Rates of teenage black girls give birth as teenagers, the lowest they've ever been on record. In fact, in 2004, graduation rates from high school, professional, graduate school at record highs in 2005. And but in all these different spaces, we found measurable improvement, despite the disparities between African Americans and whites. The prison industrial complex has been an incredibly destructive force in black communities. And when you look at this destructive force in black communities, it was amazing to look at how African American art and sort of grassroots organic expressions have addressed the prison industry from different angles. And so you must kind of recognize that art itself never comes out of a vacuum, but is inextricably bound to the social and political conditions out of which it emerges. So we think of even blues music. Blues music, we find people engaging all sorts of different things. The hell of sharecropping, the horrors of lynching. They may also talk about the horrors of just being in grinding, harsh poverty. You may talk about the, of course, other things that are more universal. People cheating with their spouses, dogs dying, that kind of thing. So you have all sorts of things, but the prison industry also comes up there. But I want to kind of start this when we think about hip hop, and you think about the creation of popular culture in the United States. pop culture in the U.S., as we understand it, emerges in the antebellum period, so a generation before Civil War, and front and center was the minstrel show. And the minstrel, so at the very beginning of American pop culture, U.S. Pop culture is sort of obsessed with race. And when we talk about being obsessed with race, it's not just an expression of kind of ridiculing of blackness, but in a sense, there's a corollary there, sort of a construction of what whiteness is, in many ways, because whiteness is not black, right? So it's sort of antithesis of this. So if the Negro is shiftless and lazy and irresponsible, the white man is industrious, hardworking, and civilized. And so